Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Howard on Sports. My name is Howard, and recently I made a video about the famous racing sausages, and I said maybe I'll go on eBay and purchase something. And here it is. I got this beautiful t shirt, and whenever I'm in a bad mood, I'm going to put this on, look in the mirror, and laugh at the silliness of it, and I love it. But anyway, that's not what today's video is about. Today's video is about one hit wonders. Now, I'm a big music fan, and in the 80s, there were many one hit wonders in pop music. For example, Come On Eileen was by a group called Dexy's Midnight Runners, and you had Kajagoogoo doing Too Shy. It's a million of them, but in the 80s, there were so many one hit wonders. But what about in sports? Sports had some very, very interesting one hit wonders, and I'm going to briefly talk about three of them. The first one was the 1983 Philadelphia 76ers. And that was a team that was good for several years, but that year in particular, they were really good. They had traded for Moses Malone at center, and he was dominant. And then, of course, you had Dr. J. Julius Erving, Maurice Cheeks, Andrew Toney, Bobby Jones, really like an incredible group of starting players. And they dominated in the playoffs. I believe they only lost one game in the entire playoffs. They swept the LA Lakers. And they were really one of the better single season basketball teams that you're ever going to see. And they were good for a while, but that one year they were dominant. So I would call them a one hit wonder. And then a few years after, you had the 1985 Chicago Bears. The Bears were good for about 4 or 5 years, but that one year they were unstoppable. They only lost one game the whole year to the Miami Dolphins, who had Dan Marino. It was a Monday Night Football game, and the Dolphins scored 38 points. I was shocked because the Bears' defense was, you could barely score on them. They were so good. But for one game, they were human. But then the playoffs came, and the Bears steamrolled over everyone, including my New York Giants. And then they didn't have to play the Dolphins in the Super Bowl, who had beat them in the regular season. They played the Patriots, and they destroyed them. And for one season, they were probably the best football team I've ever seen. They couldn't really maintain it, unfortunately. A few years after, they were no longer a dominant team, but that one season is as good as you'll ever see. And then the last one I'll talk about is a year after that, the 1986 New York Mets. I saw them up close and personal living in this city. And listen, I may be a Yankee fan, but the truth is the truth. That was a great baseball team. They ended up with 108 wins, so they won 2/3 of all their games in the regular season. And in the playoffs were a struggle. They could have lost many, many times, but they didn't. They always made the big play, got the big hit, got the big out. They did whatever they had to do. And honestly, in miraculous fashion a few times, because they really should have lost. But they didn't. They won the World Series, and including that famous play where the ball went in between Bill Buckner's legs. That was a game they 100% should have lost and should have lost the World Series. And that would have been the end of the Boston Red Sox World Series drought. But it didn't happen. The Mets came back, and they ended up winning. So the Mets were not a dominant team in the postseason. They were kind of lucky, to be honest with you. But in the regular season, they were very dominant, like I said, with 108 victories and a great pitching staff. And, they had depth, they had power. They were really, really impressive. But they couldn't maintain it. They were really good again a couple of years later in 1988, but they didn't make it back to the World Series. So, in my opinion, you could call them a one-hit wonder. So anyway, those are three examples of one-hit wonders. If there are any good ones that I didn't think of, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. But once again, Racing sausages, baby! Racing sausages!